Please note that in this episode of Out for Coffee, there is discussion about graphic, real-life content.
Not for the faint of heart. Viewer discretion and listener discretion is advised. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Halloween special, to another cock-a-doodie episode. Guess what? You're staying out for coffee.
With Paul and Annie. Hi, I'm Mike Crabb.
And I'm Laurie Schultz. Welcome to the show.
We'll have some caffeinated conversation.
And maybe some special guests along the way.
Who knows where the conversation will go? You're out for coffee with Mike and Laurie. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're having a very special time today. We're in a mysterious, undisclosed, haunted location today.
Very haunted location. Undisclosed.
Undisclosed.
Mysterious.
How are you, Laurie?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. It's nice to see you here in costume.
What do you mean?
We got...
What are you talking about?
You're ridiculous.
I'm so excited. We've been planning this for a while.
We were trying to think what would be a fun themed couples costume for a couple of hooligans like us.
Couple of hooligans like us.
And so for those that might not be familiar, we are portraying the characters of Annie Wilkes and Paul Sheldon from the story and as well as the movie Misery by Stephen King.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them a bit about it?
Okay. Well, Annie Wilkes, or me. So for those of you just listening, we're decked right out in Wilkes Sheldon materials here. So anyway, Annie Wilkes is kind of a reclusive, weirdo kind of lady, not being typecast at all here. And her favorite writer is Paul Sheldon, played here by Mike Crabb, our good friend Mike.
Yes.
And Paul ends up getting into a car accident not too far from where Annie lives in the middle of winter.
Yes, bad snowstorm.
Bad snowstorm. And so Annie rescues him, brings him into her home, and nurses him back to health. A little bit of Munchausen syndrome by proxy here, because she's basically keeping him ill so she can keep her favorite writer under her roof so he can rewrite the story that she hated so much that he had written his last
She
episode.
is his number one fan.
His number one fan.
Number one fan. And the reason for Paul being up in the mountains was to write his book in his series that she is such a fan of.
His Misery series.
Yes, Misery Chastain is the character of the Misery series. And Annie reads his final book in that, and she is not all too pleased.
No.
So he ain't going nowhere
until
he makes it right.
Right. And even when he decides that, you know what, I've understood here that I'm being kept captive, he makes a little break for it. Mm-hmm. And then she makes a break for it.
Oh, that's good.
Woo-hoo-hoo.
Those of you that know.
I didn't have a sledgehammer, but I had a mallet. So I think for all intents and purposes, this will suffice.
It could do some damage.
You know who I am if I stand here like this. I'm not Thor. Not Thor's wife. No, maybe I am. I don't know who I am anymore.
Let's say hi to Rob.
Hi,
How
Rob.
are you, Rob?
Hi guys, how you doing?
Good.
Rob's in a costume. He's in a leotard.
Yeah. He probably can't you to turn back again this year.
Yeah.
Meow.
Yeah, that's why I'm just being filled from here up.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
He didn't have time to draw on the whiskers. So.
Yeah, that's it.
How are you, Rob?
I am doing all right. Yeah, I'm not so sure about this place though. I'm kind of wondering if something's going to fall down on me back here, but
It's a very unsettling.
Yeah,
so without giving too much information, this is a very old house. And we're right now currently in the attic of it, which was a lot of lugging of equipment upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was.
But we're grateful because this is kind of a fun little experience here today.
Absolutely. Something different.
Yeah. So thank you for all your hard work and
you bet.
getting us here. So Laurie, what do you want to talk about today?
It's my time to shine.
This is
my time.
This is your season.
I've come alive. I don't know. Maybe I haven't. I don't know. Maybe I'm the undead.
Oh.
It'd be perfect, though. You know, I had all my crows. I brought all my crows with me, but we couldn't fit them on the table.
We got our table filled with our props, which include your Misery book. I've got some matches and, was that lighter fluid?
Yep.
I got my new novel written.
Yeah.
Just to set dress a little bit here.
We have a giant typewriter that I have, an antique typewriter.
It weighs 1,000,000 pounds.
It weighs definitely 1,000,000 pounds, and it was kind of sad, but kind of funny watching Mike try to lug it up like 11 flights of stairs to get up here. Yeah, but there was no room for that here either. But we'll take some pictures and put it on our little socials
we'll share.
there.
So those of you that are listening can get a bit of a visual as to what we're up to today.
Yeah, this is pretty exciting. But, it's time it's spooky season.
Yes.
It is spooky
We're
season.
in it.
Yeah, my pumpkins are on the porch waiting.
Are they
to
not
rot.
rotted yet? Because
No.
they've already been out there quite a while.
They've been out there for a few weeks. They're probably getting a little mushy on the inside, kind of like me. A little round and orange on the outside. A little mushy on the... I don't know. This is really going off the rails already.
Well, that's what we do best. Well, I wanted to share today a story, a local ghost story. I will say before we go further, I am going to remove my sling because it's not necessary. My character is wearing
It's a miracle.
Sling.
It is a miracle.
Oh,
Look at
I'm
this.
Healed. The power of coffee.
The power of coffee
Ready to rock and
compels
roll.
you.
So that leaves for now, though. But
Ooh, maybe next year we can be the exorcist and the priest.
who are you?
Cool. Who do you think I am? I'm Linda Blair, baby.
So I wanted to share a bit of a local ghost story. Dare I say Oxford County's most famous ghost. That is of Thomas Cook, the first hanged person in Woodstock. There was 5 hangings in total in Woodstock.
Thank you for saying hanged.
It's correct.
It is absolutely correct to say hanged when you're talking about an execution.
Well, let me say, don't expect that to happen again.
Okay.
And I do expect you to correct me when I do it wrong.
You know it.
It's going to happen.
You know I'm going to do it. But I do appreciate when you said hanged because when people say hung, I know that they think it's grammatically correct.
It ain't.
But it ain't grammatically correct.
It's not right.
It ain't.
But so that it ain't.
You
Very
just picked
nice.
up on
I
that.
did pick
The
up on
irony.
that. I
The
did.
irony. Okay.
So Thomas Cook. And now I believe you know a few things about Thomas, don't you?
Well, I know a little bit, and if I can just interject before you
go for
get
it.
into the meat and potatoes of this. When I would run the Paranormal Society at WCI, we would take Thomas Cook's face, or maybe you'll get to this later. I don't know. Do you want me to?
I'll get to that.
Okay,
so why
then
don't we
I'll
revisit?
wait.
And then
I'll
you
wait
can
on
share
that.
about your Paranormal Society experience.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of the game. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm too excited.
So
Sorry.
I will say that Laurie knows all sorts of things, and I shared a few things that I had found out in my research.
Yes.
That was news to her.
Yes.
So we will see. Now,
Did you get this from Wikipedia? Because I don't know. If it was Wikipedia.
I will say it was actually very difficult to find information online about him.
Really?
But what I did find, I kept the sources for because I knew you'd be asking.
I'd like it in MLA format, please.
So I also had to take notes because I'd hate to misspeak and say hung instead of hanged.
Yes, thank you.
So Thomas Cook
Yes.
was a blind man, which was news to Laurie,
Yeah.
described as an overweight, angry alcoholic.
That I knew.
That paints a bit of a picture. He moved to Canada from Nottingham in 1848 and married into a prominent Innerkit family. His wife had a child, and his wife and his first wife and son had passed away. I couldn't find any information on how or why.
Or where? Where are they?
Exactly. We'll find out, I guess.
Maybe they're in this room right now.
Possibly.
Okay.
Okay. So soon after his wife and son had passed, he had remarried to his second wife, Bridget. So let's fast forward to July 21st, 1862. So
Good year.
immediately prior to meeting, this day, they had returned, soon before this day, I apologize, they had returned from a 7-month begging tour. Do you know what a begging tour is?
Like begging?
Like begging.
Like, give me some stuff?
So I couldn't find out actually what a begging tour was, but I believe
Sounds like I want to go on one.
And maybe Rob has an idea. Do you know what a begging tour is, Rob?
No, I'm sorry. I can't place that one.
The only thing that I could really maybe find was like if you didn't have a lot of money and you were traveling, you would beg for money and support to help get you to where it was. So 7 months of that. That was
Interesting.
It was just kind of a little throwaway line, but I was like, I actually don't know what that means. So
Let us know if you know.
if you know what a begging tour is, please let us know. So early on this day, Thomas Cook and his wife Bridget had left their house, accompanied by a gentleman by the last name of Culver. They left Innerkip. They came into Woodstock, right? Later that day, they had turned around and they were heading back home towards Innerkip, and it is reported that there was significant quarreling happened on the way
Quarreling?
back. They were fighting quite a bit.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thomas and Bridget. Poor Culver's there, awkward fly on the wall.
Yeah.
Wondering how he got into that.
He's like, so, anybody see the Nick game?
So, as they enter back into Innerkip, they choose to stop off at a local inn in Innerkip to have a drink of whiskey to help aid in their argument, is what the article
to
said.
help quell the fury? Is that what whiskey does?
Hold on to that note for a
Okay.
second, because that's probably not the best coping mechanism to get through arguments.
No, that's not the best coping mechanism to get. Coping mechanism.
Coping mechanism.
Thank you.
However, so they had their drink, then they proceed to go to their homes in Innerkip.
Yep.
So they get home, Thomas goes to bed. He is later awoken quite abruptly by a noise that he heard, or thinks he heard, was a person escaping out of the window of their house. Being a blind man, he asked his wife about it. It also sounds like there might have been a history of unfaithfulness. So I'm sure he had specific pointed words towards her, perhaps, inquiring about what is this I'm hearing. And she
What's this
proceeded
Culver
to...
guy doing?
So
Oh.
there actually wasn't much about him. However, he was in the home. So
I bet he was in the home.
Thomas is questioning his wife about what that noise was and who was in the house, and she proceeds to laugh at him, mock his sensibility, and she too is still drunk. So this provoked a bit of a fit of anger.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster, or for at least a Jerry Springer episode.
Well, it gets a little stronger than that.
Okay.
In but a moment.
Okay.
So this did provoke a fit of anger in Thomas, and according to his own statement, he struck her several blows with his fist.
Oh my God.
And at the same time grasped her by the throat. That was his side of it.
Okay.
And he denied any use of any other weapons or means. However, Culver, who was still at the house with them, was witness to the attack. Mm-hmm. He testified that Thomas had beaten her with a stick, thus, by desperate violence, effected the murder. This damning testimony was what found Thomas Cook guilty and ultimately sentenced to death.
That's when we still had a death penalty here in Canada.
Back in 1862.
I believe it ended in 74-ish.
That's actually a good thing to look up. I
Yeah.
know there was a hanging in the 50s.
Yeah, no, it was. I believe it was the 70s when our death penalty was abolished.
So, crime has taken place.
Yes. Oh, I forgot about this part. I know about this.
What part?
About his hanging.
So, that brings us
Yes.
to his execution date. So, on
Yes.
Tuesday, December 16th, I believe that's about 5 months later, in 1862, Thomas Cook's execution was to take place in front of the jail on December 23rd, 1862, in front of an audience of 3,400 people.
Nice little Sunday afternoon. You know, bring a picnic.
Yeah,
bring
right
the fam.
Right before Christmas.
bring-
Sounds like...
Bring the kids down. Who needs a Santa Claus parade when there can be a public hanging? Seriously. So the jail is actually Woodstock's current health unit.
Yes.
So if you want to know where this is, like, this isn't some building that's been destroyed in
No.
land. That is the health unit.
And it's actually a very beautiful building.
Down
It's
by
been well
Victoria Park?
maintained. It's right across the street from Victoria Park in Woodstock.
It's beautiful.
It's worth checking out, especially if you're in the neighborhood and want to do a little local history search.
Because you'll want to go there after this story because there's something you're going to want to see.
So the experience is shared. So the report of how this experience went, of this hanging, was shared in the Saturday, December 27th, 1862 edition of the London Free Press. Ooh. And I just thought I would read the article because they sum it up, I'm going to say quite graphically.
Good.
But
little graphic content here, kids.
so just a heads up. So this is a portion of the article. On the morning of the execution, Cook appeared in good spirits, partook of a hearty breakfast, and such other sustaining requisites, as the kindness of the estimable governor of the prison suggested. At no part of the trying ordeal did Cook's manhood forsake him, and he stepped from the prison on the way to the gallows with surprising firmness. On reaching the scaffold, the condemned man was placed at once on the drop, the rope adjusted around his neck, and all was ready for the fatal fall. Cook remained for a moment engaged in prayer when, at a given signal, the bolt was drawn, and with the swiftness of thought, the unhappy man fell through the trap. The fall was a very long one, the rope being 9 feet 4 inches long.
Yeah.
It was now that the unlooked for and terrible scene was sickened all who beheld it took place. The fall being so great that the man's body being in a deceased condition, the vertebrae and muscles connecting the head with the shoulders gave way, and, terrible to relate, the head rolled off, while the body fell with a heavy plunge into the interior of the scaffold. The lifeblood of the criminal poured out in livid streams from the headless trunk, while the torn muscles and gaping arteries presented a sickening spectacle. The crowd, seeing the body disappear from their view and the rope swaying to and fro, at once supposed that some catastrophe had occurred. But it was not for a few minutes that the real nature of the horror became known. When it was bruited around that the man whom they had but a minute before seen alive in the scaffold was now a mangled, headless corpse, a thrill of horror seemed to settle upon all. For a few minutes the body lay as it fell, the authorities apparently shrinking from the task of touching the murderer's remains. So when he was hanged, they didn't account for his weight and the length of the rope. So
Too
the
much
force
slack?
was way too much, and his head was completely severed from his body.
That's unfortunate.
That's horrible. That's
Yeah.
ooh. In front of 3,400 people.
Probably children.
Welcome to the friendly city. There was no proper burial for Thomas Cook.
No.
However, a death mask was created as a warning to other prisoners and a reminder of the ultimate consequence. This is the only death mask created in Woodstock's history, and it's often done by taking a plaster casting of the face of the corpse. Do you want to talk a moment about the mask?
Yes. That death mask is available for all to see in this town right now. If you go to the health unit and you go to the main doors that faces
The north
Buller?
doors.
Yeah, Buller Street.
On Buller Street.
Buller
yeah.
Street doors. There's a giant archway, and at the one edge of the parabola, the only
Look at you.
that word from grade 11 math came back to be useful, parabola. It's kind of situated a little higher than sightline up on the door frame. And it is the death mask of Thomas Cook.
It's actually quite prominent. You can easily see it from the street
Yeah.
driving by if you know where it is.
So I would take the Paranormal Society kids for a little walk, tell them the story of Thomas Cook. But I didn't know he was a blind man. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. It certainly didn't change the fact that his head popped off.
And that he murdered his wife.
Yeah.
So it said that those that took possession of his body after he had passed had sold it to the Woodstock Medical Clinic that was located at the corner of Finkel and Dundas Street, which is where RBC is right now across from the museum.
Yes, it is.
They had financially benefited from this, and Cook's body was disposed of in a dissecting room at the clinic. However, Thomas never did receive a proper burial from that. So reports of hauntings on the courthouse... after the fact, I should say, that there's been reports in the courthouse on the 4th floor, which is mainly unused.
Yes.
That there has been some paranormal activity and suggestions of ghostly happenings. And according to John Robert Colombo in Mysteries of Ontario, that is a book, workmen in 1982 complained about their tools being moved about or missing, lights being turned on and off without human intervention, and a scary face being seen in a tunnel leading to an old air duct. So it's reported that the location of the clinic, the medical clinic that we were talking about, in 1903 there was a construction crew that were doing some renovations and stuff there, and it said that they had found what is believed to be Cook's skeleton buried there.
With the head?
I didn't get that bit. But it was then later moved to an unmarked grave.
So he's a restless spirit.
By the sounds of it.
Yeah.
I also had read notes that when they were doing construction, I believe that they had either moved the death mask while they were doing their constructions, and that's when things really started getting pretty
So they put it back.
heavy, and they had put it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a
That's
little
creepy.
local history for you.
That's a little creepy.
Yeah. Check my math on it, though, just to case.
Well, I don't know. Doesn't
There's
matter.
like 5 articles to read about it. We should go to the museum and see
We
if they
should
have
do a
any
museum.
information on that.
Yeah. Do a museum little tour. That'd be fun. Maybe I'd like to actually see the original LF Press article.
So it is an actual like scan of the article.
Cool.
That's where I got.
There wasn't a photo
this
or
was
anything,
from.
was there?
There was not a photo.
No, okay.
No.
Was there a drawing?
No.
No. It's amazing, though, how we've gone from a society where people would actually go as a family outing to a public hanging
Right.
to now abolishing the death penalty completely.
It's a notable day out for the family, and so because his was so drastic and
Yes.
traumatizing.
Yeah.
That they never held another public hanging in Woodstock. The rest, the remaining 4, were private.
Yeah. Wow. Freaky. Freaky. Well, note to self. I don't know what the
What's
note
the
is.
note?
I don't know. Don't go to public hangings. I don't
do
know.
bad things. Don't go to public
No,
hangings.
that's one
It's very
thing
clear.
I don't know if I could ever have interest in. As much as I'm interested in, like serial killer documentaries and stuff like
macabre.
that,
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever go to an execution.
I think that would be a pretty heavy. Even on even if you're putting on your educational hat and saying this is, you understand what it is you're getting into, there's no way that's not leaving you with something.
Right.
An
Now, I have
emotion
seen people
and-
die,
Oh.
yes, but never executed.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah. Not like a whole bunch of people. Anyway,
Where
moving
are you going
on.
with
Moving
this?
along.
So,
Next subject.
do you have any stories?
I have a little story that I want to share with you. There's a story about this guy who his car broke down. Rainy day. It's like nighttime. He's out in the middle of the woods. He sees his cabin. It's pouring rain. His car breaks down. He's like, oh, it's so cold out here. I really, really, really should go into this place. Knocks on the door. No answer. So he creeps inside. And he's looking around. It's dark. And he sees that there is a casket. I guess it's more of a coffin. This is like old times. Old-timey story.
Got it.
So it's a coffin. There's a difference between a coffin and a casket.
I was going to say.
Yeah. So it's a coffin. And he sees, like, this must have been a wake at one point, and everyone's gone home, and this woman, this older lady, is lying in this coffin. And she's got silver dollars on her eyes. Mm-hmm. I suppose it was maybe to keep her eyes closed.
Okay.
I don't know. And
I have an idea about that, which we
Okay.
could circle back to. If you
okay, there was no chocolate inside. It wasn't that kind of coin.
want. Okay.
It wasn't Christmas.
I would have checked.
Okay. So he's looking at these coins. Like, this is a guy who was not well-to-do, right? So he's thinking, man, there's these 2 free silver dollars here. So he decides, you know what? He grabs them, and he
Okay.
puts them in his pocket. He's like, all right, you know what? That's fine. She's dead anyway. She's not going to miss them. Nobody's here. What the heck? I'm going to sleep here, dry off, whatever. Out first thing in the morning. So he sees there's a bed in a corner. He gets into the bed. He takes his change out of his pocket. There's a little tiny container on the dresser. So he just puts the change into the container. And he's lying there, and all of a sudden he just hears a little bit of the shaking of the container, like some, like what change would sound like if you're jingling it in a
like
metal
a metallic
container.
rattle?
Yeah, just ever so slightly. He's like, nope. And he's lying there. He's like, okay, just that didn't happen. I'm just hearing things. I'm freaking out because I just stole this dead lady's money. Freaking out. And so he's got his eyes closed, and all of a sudden, he hears in the distance, who has my money? He's like, nope, nope, I'm just dreaming. I'm just dreaming. That's fine. I'm scared. Obviously, the wind is blowing outside. And the wind really is blowing, and it's whipping around, and you're hearing, ooh,
Right.
ooh. And then all of a sudden you hear clinkety clink, clinkety clink in the tin can. He's closing his eyes. He's got his covers pulled right up to his chin. He's like, no, this is it. I'm fine. I'm hallucinating because I'm scared. I'm tired. I'm cold. I'm wet. Probably hungry at this point. I've just stolen $2 from this dead lady. I'm fine. Ooh, the wind is blowing, and you hear clinkety clink, clinkety clink, and it's a little louder this time. Who's got my money? Ooh. And the wind is blowing. And it's getting louder and louder, and the clinkety clink, clinkety clink, clinkety clink is getting louder and louder, and then, who's got my money? Clinkety clink, clinkety clink, and the wind is blowing, and the rain is pouring, and it's going, and all of a sudden he's hearing, who's got my money? I just got Mike for those who are only listening.
I'm wiping my makeup on my face.
I used to tell that story to my class all the time.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd have the same kids for years, and I'd tell the same story for years, and I would get somebody every time. It would be great.
And the last class, if they were still in your class, they probably knew it was coming?
They knew it was coming, but they just didn't know when.
Right.
Yeah, I almost made somebody hit the ceiling once, and it was fabulous. But they just knew to expect that. That came from my Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark book.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Which you brought up before.
Many times before, how much I love that.
Favorite book you read?
As you're talking about Thomas Cook and his head popping off,
Yes.
I was thinking about my other book, Jenny, with the green ribbon around her neck.
Yes.
And when Alfred untied it, her
Finally
head fell
untied
off.
her ribbon.
I think that's probably the
Heads will
third
roll.
or fourth time we've mentioned
At least.
Jenny on this show out of,
least.
what? This is like episode 48?
I think so.
48. We're getting close to 50, kids.
Going back to the dollars on the eyes.
Yeah.
So I believe that I've heard that is kind of like almost like a ritual or a tradition kind of thing, with the intent of that those are to pay for the
ferry.
Yes,
on the River Styx.
Styx.
Mm.
That is what the money is intended for.
Right. Well, you know
So
what?
that's why she wasn't able to go anywhere.
course.
Because her fare was gone.
No wonder she's pissed.
She's upset.
She's like, now I'm stranded on the shore. Can't cross the River Styx. Because this hobo's lying in my bed with my coins in his purse. I don't know, maybe he doesn't have a purse. It's a merce.
Wherever he puts his
It's
coins.
European. It's a European carry-all. Seinfeld reference for anyone who's... No, okay. I don't know, I'm just scaring myself right now because I'm thinking, I'm a horrible storyteller now.
No.
It took me a second to get into this story, so I'm like, oh God, where's this going? As I'm telling the story, I'm thinking, do I even know this story?
How does it end? One of those.
You're lucky it only lasted like 3 minutes because I could have just kept going.
Well, you know what we should maybe do for a future spooky episode is talk about some more of those local things. I would love if one day maybe we could do a local ghost tour.
Yeah.
Which I understand Woodstock was hosting one this
Yeah.
year, but I think it was like 2 slots and they filled up very quickly.
Yeah.
That's probably something they could do year round.
Probably. I took my mom to a cemetery when she was here last weekend.
Which cemetery?
The one over the old church.
The old log church cemetery.
Old log
on
church
the 43rd
cemetery.
line.
Critters Lane.
Critters Lane.
Which we've also discussed
But
several
you went during the
times.
day, as you should.
We went
'cause
during
you're not
the
allowed to
day,
go at night.
And it is absolutely beautiful.
It actually is a beautiful cemetery. Very picturesque on the countryside.
Yeah.
Very spooky, especially if you go closer to dusk. Ooh.
I said, hey, Mom, want to have some fun? She's like, yeah, sure. And I drive her to a cemetery. Now play your cards right, Mom, or I'm leaving you here. No, just kidding. Love you, Mom. Yeah, but it's beautiful. We took some photos.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what do you do on your Saturday? I go to a cemetery, take photos.
But
But
it's so picturesque.
It is picturesque.
You can get away
and
with
in
it.
the fall, it is absolutely gorgeous.
Yes, it is.
I'll post some of the pictures I took.
And the majority of the tombstones there are considerably old, like 1800s.
Yeah, actually, that's something that Mom and I talked about, is that how sad it actually is. That this is all that's left of these folks.
Right.
And most of them, I don't want to say most, but there's a lot of the older ones that are illegible.
Right, they've been
can't-
so unkempt, and
Yeah.
that they're tough to read anymore. Now, I did notice quite a few of the names on many of those tombstones are somewhat familiar names to the like Embro community and
Yeah,
stuff
some
like that
local
too. So there
names,
might
yeah.
be some families still around, but a lot of them are like tombstones have broken and
Yeah. There was one that had
badly
like
falling
brackets that was
apart.
trying to put it back together.
Yeah, I've seen that, like a bracing.
Yeah,
keep it in place.
like Forrest Gump's legs as a child.
Oh yes, I guess so, eh?
I don't know. This is where my brain goes.
Rob,
Sorry.
do you have any ghost stories that you were once told as a child or that have stuck with you over the years?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I've heard a few ghost stories in my day. There used to be very, very similar versions of Laurie's story told around the campfire
Yeah.
with the Boy Scouts and
Right.
Cub Scouts and such. So, yeah, I've probably heard quite a few of them. Gee, I don't know if anyone comes to mind right off the top
None
of my
that
head.
stuck
but-
with you enough to recite?
No, not to recite.
Have you ever seen a ghost?
Have I ever seen a ghost? Casper? No, that doesn't count. No, I'm going to have to say no.
Okay.
No.
It's actually funny. Before we came here today, I was telling Laurie, Rob, I didn't get a chance
Oh, yeah.
to mention this to you. I had popped over to the theater
Yeah.
to pick up some tech material that we were going to use, just a gel lighting for something. And anyways, while I was in the building, there was a good friend of ours that works at the theater. Her name's Taffy. She was waiting up at the front door for
Oh,
her
yes,
ride to pick
yes.
her up. And as I was there chatting with her, she was kind of standing in front of the elevator right at the front door there, and there's a little in-use light that
Yes,
when
yes,
the door is open or when when it's going up and down, this light lights up.
Sure.
And
sure.
as I'm talking to her, it starts like dimly flickering. And I'm about to say, why is that going off? And then all of a sudden the whole elevator goes, kunk, and we see it drop down like 2 inches. We both jumped out of our skins.
Yeah.
She's worked there for years.
Yes,
She said she has
Taffy's,
never seen or heard that happen before.
Wow.
And it's one of those things that if I wasn't there, nobody would have believed me. If I wasn't there, nobody would have believed her. If she wasn't there, nobody would have believed me. It was a very quick moment, but it was enough to give us the creeps.
Yeah.
We had
Yep.
to check it to make sure. It's
The
like,
creeps.
what if somebody was stuck in there? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Looked at it, nothing.
Well, in the theater, you know, I realize that you guys know this, but we always make a habit of leaving a light on the stage. And we have sort of general work lights on our stage, and so we quite often use those. Many theaters that I've been in actually have just a lamp stand, like a standing lamp, and maybe just a bulb with no shade on it, standing in the middle of the theater. And the practical people amongst the crowd will say is for safety, so that when people come into the theater or into the building, at least it's not completely dark, and sometimes there's props lying around you could trip and whatnot. So it's a safety thing. But there's a pretty strong feeling amongst many theater people that light is referred to as the ghost light.
Yes.
It
And it's
is-
actually
it is-
considered.
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. It's actually considered bad luck not to have a ghost light.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And
Yes.
that you're going to bring
Yep.
Undue
Oh,
negative
yeah,
energy
yeah.
into your space. So
Yes.
to
Is that like
leave-
saying Macbeth in a theater?
Yes, that's not allowed.
Not allowed.
So yeah, it's quite important to
Oh,
leave
yeah.
those lights on.
Yeah, for sure.
The ghost light.
Ghost
The
light.
ghost light, yeah.
Hey, that
And a lot of theaters actually just simply refer to it as the ghost light. That's just what it is.
Every theater's got a ghost, I bet.
audience members, like think of it.
Like
think
the
of
emotion
think of
that
an old like think of an old opera house, right? Like how many people have been
Yeah.
in that building?
Oh, yes.
How many different people have performed in
sure.
there? How many emotions were felt?
Right.
How many
Oh,
like
yes,
there's
yes.
so much.
That's
The
true.
energy,
That's very
the
true.
imprint that's left behind. I know the Grand Theatre in London's very haunted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ambrose Small haunts it.
That's the name of the
That's
person?
the name of the person.
Ambrose Small?
Ambrose.
Ambrose Small.
Ambrose Small.
Oh, I might have to do a little research.
A little more research from Mikey there.
Were they blind as well?
I don't think so.
I'll have to show you the notes I
I don't
found.
think his head came off either.
Oh,
No. That's actually a really horrible story.
horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And you're smiling.
well, what else can you do?
You can't. And it was like 200 years ago.
It was quite a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think we've had some really fun time tonight talking.
I gotta go
all
home and
things
go to
ghosts.
sleep.
It's time to go to bed.
Dream.
Good costume, Laurie. I'm
Good
really
costume, Mikey.
I'm really pleased that we dressed up today. We're gonna take
Me
a proper
too.
photo and share it
Yes.
on our socials so everyone can see.
We will. And you're all like beat up.
I'm all bruised
Look
up.
at the bruising. Yeah. And I got my little mallet.
We're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah. You better play your cards right or else I'll leave you in the cemetery too.
Okay. Thank you for that threat.
Anytime. That's what I'm good for.
Listen, we want to wish everyone the happiest and safest of Halloweens this year.
Ooh.
It's something we look forward to every year. And
Yeah.
the fact that we now have a new tradition of sharing some fun things
Yeah.
and having you join us to celebrate means the world to us. So thank you so much for coming out and joining us today. And we will see
Yeah.
you on our next episode
You dirty birdies.
of Out for Coffee.
With Mike and Laurie. And Paul and Annie.
And Rob.
And Rob.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Do you have questions, comments, or ideas for a future show? Reach out to Mike and Laurie on their social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Or email us at mikeandlauriesocials@gmail.com.